So this week we'll be learning about planning and objectives and goals as it relates to management. And so our objectives for this week are to define goals and plans and explain the relationship between them. Also, we will explain the concept of an organizational mission and how it influences goal setting and planning. Thirdly, we will describe the types of goals an organization should have and how managers use strategies to align with those goals. We'll also define the characteristics of effective goals as well as define components of a strategic plan, discuss the strategic planning process, and SWOT analysis. And so, those are the things that we're going to go over and learn this week. So, as it relates to management, managers decide whether the organization should go or where the organization should go in the future and how to get there. So, without clear goals and plans, employees really cannot perform up to their potential, and the organization really just it suffers and it flounders. So, in some organizations, really typically small ones, planning is informal. In others, managers really follow a well defined planning framework. So the company establishes really a basic mission and develops formal goals and strategic plans for carrying out that mission. Companies such as Royal Dutch or Shell gas, Shell gas stations, IBM, and United Way undertake a strategic planning exercise each year, reviewing their missions, their goals, and their plans to meet environmental changes or the expectations of important stakeholders, such as the community, the owners, or their customers. And so many of these companies also develop contingency plans or scenarios for unexpected circumstances and disaster recovery plans, which we'll talk about in the event of like a hurricane, an earthquake, or God forbid, a terrorist attack. So, of the four management functions, planning, organizing, leading, and controlling, those are the four. Planning is considered the most fundamental. Everything else really stems from planning. Yet planning also is the most controversial management function. So managers are always planning for the future because our environment is constantly changing. So let's start. So a goal or planning is really fundamental, right? So we talked about, right, all of the other functions stemming for planning. So how do you plan for an undefined future? No plan is perfect. So, as I discussed in my overview, without plans and goals, organizations will flounder. They will flop, they will fail. And that's really key to anything in life, right? Without a plan or a clear goal, what direction are we going? How do we ensure our success without having plans and goals? So let's define what a goal is. A goal is defined as a desired future state that organizations attempt to realize. Goals are important because they define the purpose of an organization. And a plan is a blueprint really for goal achievement, and it specifies the necessary resources and those resource allocations, the necessary schedules, tasks, and other actions. So goals specify future ends. It plans. I'm sorry. Goals I'm getting tongue tied. I'm at home doing my podcast. So I'm getting distracted by my little 5-year-old. So sorry. Anyway, goals specify future ends, and plans specify today's means. So the word planning usually incorporates both ideas. It means determining the organization's goals and defining the means for achieving those goals. So the planning process starts with a formal mission, as you can see here, right? So it starts with a formal mission that defines the basic purpose of the organization. Top managers are responsible for establishing strategic goals and plans that reflect a commitment to both organizational efficiency, and effectiveness. Tactical, oops, why am I drawing on it? Sorry. Tactical goals and plans are the responsibility of middle managers, and operational goals and plans identify the specific procedures or processes that are needed at lower levels of the organization. So frontline managers and supervisors develop operational plans that focuses on specific tasks and processes and that help to meet tactical and strategic goals. So planning at each of these levels actually supports the other levels. Uncertainty about the future and the complexity of today's environment, sometimes they overwhelm managers and cause them to focus on operational issues and short-term results rather than the long-term plan. So, however, planning generally has a positive effect on a company's performance. So, in addition to improving the financial and the operational performance, explicit goals and plans at different levels send important messages to both internal and external audiences. So, um, the purposes of goals and plans, they serve a few purposes. The first purpose um, is the legitimacy of the organization, right? So, an organization's mission describes what the organization really stands for, um, and also its um, reason for existence. So it symbolizes the legitimacy to external and internal audiences, such as we talked about those stakeholders, the investors, the customers, and the suppliers. Also, um, another purpose of goals and plans is to facilitate employees' identification with the organization and help to motivate them by reducing uncertainty and clarifying really what they should accomplish. So it can serve as a source of motivation and commitment. Also, goals help managers decide where to allocate the resources. One resource being employees, another one being money, and other things such as equipment. Also, plans or goals and plans provide a sense of direction by focusing attention on specific actions and targeting and directing employee efforts toward important outcomes. So they serve as guides to action. Through goal setting and planning, managers learn what the organization is trying to accomplish, and they can make decisions that really align with the plan. So it provides rationale for decisions. And finally, because goals define desired outcomes for an organization, they also serve as performance criteria. So they help to set a standard of performance. Setting goals starts with top managers, and the overall planning process begins with a mission statement and goals for the organization as a whole. So, at the top of the goal hierarchy is the mission and the organization's reason for existence that describes an organization's values, aspirations, and reason for being. You guys will do this for your project. You'll have to identify the organization's mission and values, so forth and so on. So the formal mission statement is a broadly stated definition of purpose that distinguishes the organization from others of similar type. So the content often focuses on the market and the customers usually and identifies desired fields of endeavor or desired outcomes. Some mission statements actually describe company characteristics such as corporate values, product quality, location of facilities, and attitude towards employees. Also, because mission statements focuses on suppliers and stakeholders and people of the sort and goals and values. Sometimes we have to have organizations have to establish strategic goals, and strategic goals are broad statements describing where the organization wants to be in the future. They pertain to the entire organization rather than to a specific division or a department. So there's criteria for setting effective goals. These characteristics pertain to organizational goals at the strategic, tactical, and operational levels. So I know you guys may have heard of this before, but first and foremost, goals should be specific and measurable. When possible, goals should be expressed in quantitative terms. Um, Vague goals tend not to really motivate employees. So, you want the goals to be, or companies should have their goals to be specific as possible. Um, so, for example, increasing profits by 2%, having zero incomplete sales order forms, or increasing average teacher effectiveness ratings from 3.5 to 3.7. All of these things are real specific, they're quantitative, they're well defined. Also, a good goal should have defined time period. So goals should specify the time period over which they will be achieved. A time period is a deadline on which the goal attainment will be measured. So, for example, at the end of the 2009 school term. So, let's go back to our previous example with the teacher, increasing average teacher effectiveness ratings from 3.5 to 3.7 by the end of the 2009 school term. So now we have specific goal. We have something that can be measured, right? We could certainly measure whether or not the effectiveness was increased from 3.5 to 3.7, and then there was a time frame specified at the end of the 2009 school term. Effective goals should also cover key results areas. So, key results areas are those items that contribute most to company performance. Key result areas should include both internal and external customers. So, to provide an example of a key result area, for our example above would be maybe students, right? So we want to increase effectiveness or student satisfaction or something like that, because we can't focus on every aspect of the organization. So what result or what key area or customer, what have you, do we want to focus in on? Um, Effective goals should be challenging but realistic, right? Goals should be challenging but not unreasonably difficult. I mean, at the end of the day, you want to be able to achieve your goal. So when goals are unrealistic, they set employees up for failure and they really lead to decreasing employee morale. But if goals are too easy, employees may not feel motivated. Stretch goals are extremely ambitious, but realistic goals that challenge employees to meet high standards. Finally, goals should be linked to rewards, right? So the impact of goals depends on the extent to which salary increases, promotions, and other rewards are based on goal achievement. So people who attain goals should be rewarded, right? We all need to be motivated, and if we achieve a goal, that's a good feeling. So we should have be rewarded in some way for achieving that goal. In an ever changing environment, it's really important that managers develop contingency plans or backup plans. Contingency plans define company responses to be taken in case of emergencies or setbacks, right? Or, it's almost like a plan B. So, contingency plans cover such situations as catastrophic decreases in sales or prices and loss of important managers. Um, so, an extension of a contingency plan is actually is a forecasting technique known as scenario building. So, scenario building involves looking at trends and discontinuities and imagining possible alternative futures to build a framework within which expected future events can be managed. So, You look at trends and visualize future possibilities, basically. With scenario building, though, a broad base of managers mentally rehearses different scenarios based on anticipated varied changes that could impact the organization. Um, and scenarios are like stories that really offer alternative, vivid pictures of what the future will look like and how managers will respond. Typically, 2 to 5 scenarios are developed for each set of factors, ranging from the most optimistic to the most pessimistic view. So, for crisis planning, which is you know, another sort of contingency plan or form of contingency plan. But for crisis planning or crisis prevention, let's talk about that. What crisis planning is for crisis prevention. So, although unexpected events and disasters will happen, managers should do everything they can really to prevent the crisis. A critical part, though, of prevention stage is really building trusting relationships with key stakeholders such as employees, customers, suppliers, governments, unions, and the community. And by developing favorable relationships, managers can often prevent crises from happening and respond more effectively to those that cannot be avoided. So, good communication really helps managers identify problems early so that they really don't turn into major issues later. So part of the preparation or the crisis preparation includes all the detailed planning to handle a crisis when it occurs. 3 steps in this stage are first, to designate a crisis management team and a spokesperson. 2, to create a detailed crisis management plan. And 3, to set up an effective communication system. So now let's talk about strategic management and strategic thinking, which is critical and it's very, very important when it comes to business and management, quite frankly. Thinking strategically means to take a long term view, see the big picture, and consider how the organization and the competitive environment fit together. So, understanding the strategy concept, the levels of strategy, strategy formulation versus implementation. These are all important starts towards strategic thinking. Strategic management, let me advance my slide. So then with that, strategic management refers to the set of decisions and actions used to formulate and implement strategies that will provide a competitively superior fit between the organization and its environments to achieve their organizational goals. So um, the purpose of a strategy um, the purpose of a strategy is to form a competitive advantage first and foremost. It also, and I'm missing a slide, but it also describes resource allocations and activities for dealing with the environment, not only achieving a competitive advantage but attaining the organization's goals. A competitive advantage refers to what sets the organization apart from others, right? Competitively. So, what sets it apart from competition, really, and it provides it with a distinct edge for meeting consumer needs within the marketplace. So, to remain competitive, companies really need to develop strategies that focus on core competencies. Develop synergy and create value for their customers. So, core competencies refer to something or refer to really something that the organization does well in comparison to its competitors. So, a core competence represents a competitive advantage because the company acquires expertise that the competitors don't have. Also, build synergy. Synergy occurs when the organizational parts interact to produce a joint effect that is greater than the sum of its parts acting alone. So I'll say that again. Synergy occurs when organizational parts interact to produce a joint effect that is greater than the sum or if you add up all of its parts alone. So the organization may attain a special advantage with respect to cost, market power, technology, or a management skill. Synergy can be obtained by good relationships or keeping good relationships with suppliers and strong alliances among companies or other companies. Okay. Um, so then finally, it delivers value. So delivering value to the customer is at the heart of a strategy. Value is the combination of benefits received and cost paid by the customer. So managers help their companies create value by devising strategies that exploit core competencies and attain synergy. The strategic management process begins when executives evaluate their current position with respect to mission, goals, and strategies. They scan internal and external environments and identify strategic factors that might require change. So the process really ends with implementation of the new strategy. So let's talk about strategy formulation versus execution. Strategy formulation includes the planning and decision making that lead to establishing the firm's goals and the development of the strategic plan that we spoke about. It includes assessing the external environment and the internal problems and integrating the results into the goals and strategy. Strategy implementation or execution, for a better word, involves the planning and decision making that lead to establishment of the firm's goals and development of a specific strategic plan. So that's the difference. It is the administration and execution of the strategic plan versus the actual planning. So managers may use persuasion, new equipment, changes in the organizational structure, or a reward system to ensure that employees and resources make formulated strategy or the formulated strategy a reality. So they execute the strategy that's formed here in the strategy formulation. At the heart of the strategic management process is developing a SWOT analysis. And so you guys will review this portion most likely because you have to discuss this a little. The next portion of your project, actually, you'll be doing a SWOT analysis. So a SWOT analysis, and most of you have heard of this before, but it's so key. A SWOT analysis includes a search for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that affect organizational performance. So SWOT, if you think about strengths is the S, the weaknesses is the W, opportunities is the O, and threats is the T in the acronym SWOT. So let's talk about internal strengths and weaknesses. These strengths and weaknesses, they are internal. It's something that the company comes with. Just like if someone asks you, what are your strengths and weaknesses? It's something that's within you. It doesn't come from the outside. So these are internal. So strengths are positive internal characteristics that an organization can exploit to achieve its strategic goals. So it's part of the organization. A strength could be something like, um, our manager has 20 years experience in the industry. It's not anything external, it's just something that comes with the company. The manager has a lot of experience, so it's internal, right? Weaknesses are internal characteristics that may inhibit or restrict the organization's performance. So a weakness could be our manager doesn't have a lot of experience in this industry, right? External opportunities and threats. These are now external. They are caused by factors that, um, are outside of the organization. So opportunities are characteristics externally of the external environment that may help the organization achieve or exceed its goals. So an opportunity, let's say, for Rasmussen College could be, um, let's see, the government has decided to give additional $2,000 in Pell Grant money. Well, that's something that we didn't create, the organization, so it's not internal. It's something that's happening in the environment that we could take advantage of. So naturally, if more people have grants and funding for school, we should capitalize on that or help more people to come to school. So that's an opportunity for us. It's external to us, but it's an opportunity that can help and we can benefit from nonetheless. Um, Threats are characteristics, external still, that may prevent the organization from achieving its strategic goals. So a threat could be the government decided to stop giving free money and scholarships overall. Well, then less people may attend college, and that's a threat, right? It's something that we um, didn't create. But it's something that could hurt us, right? But it's external. It's not a weakness. We didn't come with that. It's just something that's external. So that's an example of a SWOT. It's very, very important. It's a critical element or critical piece of the strategic planning process. So that's it for our lesson this week on planning and goal setting. This lesson is actually one that a lot of students like because it's kind of easy for them to comprehend. They're really familiar with it and it's easy to relate it to yourself. Sometimes I have students do a project where they're doing a self-management plan or strategy for themselves, but it's generally terminology that you've heard before. Um, and so it's one of the more basic chapters, and so you will be utilizing a lot of the elements that was presented today in your project. So definitely remember or star this lesson. But again, I will see you in class. If you have any questions in the interim, we will be doing a lot of implementing concepts in class. So make sure that you review, you take some notes, and be prepared for a few discussion questions. So see you in class. Enjoy your week. Bye bye.